I want to cover one of the easiest and one of the fastest ways for doubling your rate, your production rate as a filmmaker. So this works for videographers, for filmmakers, for really anybody creating a video. And I typically cover creating a video production company, which gives you a lot of different options for charging more and getting higher paying clients. This is not going to cover that. This video is going to be focused on freelance filmmakers that are trying to basically increase their rates and make more money each day. Now, last week, I talked about 3 pricing mistakes that most video businesses make. And one of them relates to freelancers, which is not charging for your gear. Basically, what I noticed is a lot of freelancers that contacted me were asking me, well, you said charge for my gear, but how do I exactly do that? What's the breakdown? So I wanted to show you an exact method with a very real life example on how I separate my labor from my gear when I freelance. This way, it's very clear to your clients that this is your labor, basically your time, and this amount of money is going towards upgrading or paying for the gear. You need to separate those things. Really, anybody that I've ever met that's been doing this more than a couple of years builds this way. The labor and gear is separate, and it's one of the easiest way to increase your rate. You can't just go from $500 to $1,000 just for your labor. That is not how you could double your rate easily. That takes time. This method you could literally implement with a brand new client that you get next week. And I want to show you here with QuickBooks, okay? So let's go ahead and just like the last example, I'm going to type in director of photography. Let's say someone hired me as a shooter, director of photography. And let's say my day rate is $500. Now, I always write day rate for things related to the production end of things. So anytime you go on a shoot, you should charge what's called a day rate. Do not charge hourly. And even though that's not what I'm covering here, one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen people make in the very beginning is charge hourly. So they'll go on a shoot. The shoot takes 4 hours. They'll charge 25 bucks an hour, and they made $100 for 4 hours of work. One of the ways someone took advantage of me when I was starting out is they were charging a day rate of $800 and having me take their place for $25 an hour on a shoot that was 4 hours. Even though they were making $800, I ended up making $100, and I didn't know any better. But as I got more experienced, I realized no one with any experience in the video production world charges hourly. They charge half-day rates and they charge full-day rates. In pre-production, like writing and creative, and in post-production, in editing, those are more standard to be hourly. But in the production world, there's half-day and full-day rates. So make sure you charge accordingly. So my day rate in Chicago is based on a 10-hour rate. So this is for 10 hours of work basically. But if it's 5 hours of work, I still get the same rate. This is why this is called a day rate, but it's up to 10 hours. If you're working on television and movies, sometimes it's based on a 12-hour rate. So this is my rate. So how do I double this rate? How do I make $1,000 for 10 hours of work? Well, usually this changes over time. So every year I will bump this up 10%, sometimes 20%, depends on my experience level. This will take several years worth of experience to get to $1,000, right? So how else can I make money and get this to $1,000? And that's the whole point with this video. You should charge for your labor. So that was your labor, $500. That's for your skill set. Based on a few years of experience, you should be charging about $500 in most markets around the US at least. But then how do you charge more than that is not tied to your labor? And that has to do with gear. And I'll use a real life example with this piece of gear, right? I need some sort of camera to shoot this video. This is the Sony a7S III. And the lens I'm using is the G Master 16-35. So this is a fantastic combo. But really to make this work, I need a card reader. I need a memory card that I have in here. I need a few batteries and so on. So this is the very basic kit that I need to take on a job. Then I basically do the math to figure out how much that entire package costs, right? So in this case, the camera is $4,000. I think I paid a little less, but it looks like it's been bumped up. The lens, I'm gonna take 2 lenses. I'm gonna take the G Master, this one, about $2,000, and I'm gonna take the one I'm shooting this video with, which is $1,000. So you're looking at about $7,000 for that full package with a couple of lenses. So how do you know exactly how much to charge for a $7,000 camera package on top of your labor? Well, it's pretty straightforward because there are rental houses that rent out filmmaking and photography equipment that have sort of set a standard, and it really depends from city to city, but I'll just give you the range. Typically, any piece of gear is basically rented at either 20 times less or 40 times less the full value. So let's do some math here with a $7,000 package. So let's say $7,000 here, and I'm gonna divide this by 20 times. If I do that, I get $350. This becomes how much that piece of gear should make in 1 day of being used or a 1-day rental. If I take $7,000 and divide it by 40, so it will have to go off 40 times to make up for its price, you get $175. So that's a big range, right? 20 times to 40 times is a big gap. So how do I know exactly which one I could charge and which one makes the most sense? Well, rental houses have really used this rule for a long time. And basically it depends on the shelf life of that piece of gear. So for example, in this case, this lens might last like 10 years, right? So you would be closer to the 40 time if you were separating this from the package. 40 times this will have to go out, 40 different shoots. For this to make money, to pay for itself, then it's all profit after that. Well, the problem is camera bodies typically don't last 10 years, right? This is going to be way outdated 10 years from now. So what do I charge for this? And typically 20 times, basically taking the price of this, dividing it by 20, is what makes sense for the day rates for the rental rate of the camera body. So it's all based on shelf life of that piece of gear. Lighting, for example, lasts a long time. So I'm going to be closer to 40. Lenses are closer to 40. The number is 20 for things that are only going to have a shelf life for 2 or 3 years or have a lot of wear and tear on them and they're really going to get wiped out, right? So in this case, let's go with the middle of the road. I'll go with 30. So that means if I divide this by 30, so total value divided by 30 is about $230 a day I could add to my day rate for just this camera package. So I'm going to go back to my estimate. I'm going to type in the camera package and I'm going to type the description here, and this is going to be $230. So you see what's going on here? We got our day rate here, and then we got our camera package, and we're getting closer to doubling the rate. So what else can we do to get more money? Well, on this specific production, we may need sound, right? So you would get like a Sennheiser Lav like this. If you do the math on this, you could probably charge $25 to $30 for this per day. What else? Well, we need lighting, we need tripod, maybe we need some camera accessories. Here I got my Ronin, and this Ronin package cost about $1,000. So let's go ahead and add that to the bill. So we got our Ronin here, and let's say that's $1,000. So that's going to get us another $50 a day. We had our audio equipment, and that was the Lav and maybe a boom. So if you do the math on those, that's about $75. Then we need lighting equipment. So I'm going to add lighting equipment, and let's say we have about $3,000 worth of lights, and that's going to give us another $100 if you use the rule of 30. So I'm almost at $1,000 right there. And this is one of those things that I was actually afraid of implementing because I thought, oh, I just show up with my gear. Who cares? I already have this stuff. I'm going to show up. That way I deserve my day rate. You have to understand that is not how the video production business works. Not for freelancers, not for videographers, not for video production companies. It's always been done this way, where labor and gear is separate, because basically, even if I make that gear rental 40 times, I just paid back that gear. Now I need to figure out where the profit comes in. So I have to basically get that on lots of different shoots for it to be a profitable piece of gear, so I could keep reinvesting even as a freelancer back into my own gear to buy more gear and charge more dollars, right? So you have to understand this is just the way the business has worked. And I know there's a lot of hesitation for filmmakers that are starting out to really break down things in on an estimate or an invoice where it looks like multiple line items, but that's just how it's done. And clients understand that a lot more clearly than if you just went from $500 to charging a client $1,000. If you go from charging a client $250 a day to $500 a day, it's really hard to justify why you all of a sudden doubled your rate without much more experience, right? That's why that way of increasing your price takes forever as you get more experience, or you have to set your old clients aside and try to get new clients with that starting rate. But this way you could actually implement those because you're offering the client more value, more accessories, more fancy production, and you could raise your rate as a freelancer. Now, my approach is different with a video production company, so watch that previous video on the pricing mistakes that I published last week, and I hope you found this one useful. Make sure you give this a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time.